All right. Like I said, I'm one who is very, very passionate about potential and people, living their lives to the fullest, becoming all that they have been created to be in life. And um, it is my purpose, I believe, to just help people, to train people, to teach people, for them to live their best lives out there in life and to become everything that they have been created to become in life. And that's what momentum is all about, right? I have done so many programs in the past, whether it's on speaking about purpose, whether it's speaking to young people, whether it's speaking about wealth creation, etc. I've done a lot of these things in times past where, I have been challenging people to do certain things and people have been blessed. And I just realized I haven't done enough of this in the past few months or years or whatever you want to call it. And I just realized that I'm at a place right now where I felt the need to do something. And that's the genesis of this. So Debbie was one of the people who pushed me and said, look, you got to come out, you got to do this. But beyond that, like I said, it is an area of calling for me. It's an area of purpose to really help people, to challenge people based on what I've studied, what I reflect on, and just what I have experienced in my life ultimately, so that, I can share some of these ideas with you. And there are three main areas of focus for me, right? One is on wealth creation, two being your spirituality, and three being your discovering your purpose and fulfilling your purpose in life. And these are three different areas where I feel especially called to be able to teach on, to be able to minister, and to just help people to grow uh, in these specific areas. And that's what I'm going to be doing today. So on this particular session, what we're really looking for is for people who would get a taste of what this year would be like, and looking for people who would commit to be partners, right, in what it is that we're doing, in spreading this message, in getting people to succeed, getting people to be all that they were created to be, getting people to move a few steps closer, towards their goals, to making the world a better place, to making an impact in their sphere of influence. As it pertains to me, the biggest focus that I have is really impact. I want people to make an impact in life. I want people to, to have a meaningful effect in the lives of people around them, in their community and in the world at large. You see, because we are all carriers of light, and you carry light on the inside of you. And there's something that you have that if you don't release into the world, you're depriving me of that benefit that you have. So I want you to bring out everything that has been deposited in you. And that's a statement, and that's a challenge of purpose, right? And that's what I'll be talking about today. So I'm going to be exploring today in our conversation, how does wealth or financial independence interact with purpose, and how does that interact with your spirituality as well? And just exploring that idea. And then we have another program that's going to be coming up on March the 5th, which is going to be the main event. It's going to be, and it's going to be specifically focused on discussing purpose, right? A lot of people have a conversation and question about purpose, and that's what I'm going to be spending time talking about. And then subsequent to that, we will be having a 6-week training program. This would be focused on these three different areas: how you can grow spiritually, how you can grow in your area of purpose, and how you can also grow in terms of finances. It's going to be a 6-week training program, and be a mentoring session as well. So you have access to me, would have expectation is for it to be a smaller group of people, but people who really are looking for the next stage, looking for the next level in what it is that they're pursuing in life. All right, so let's dive right in right now. So we talked about momentum, right? In the world today, there's so much activity. People are doing all kinds of things. It's one hustle this, it's one hustle there, etc. But we don't see a lot of impact, right? And what I want to do today in our conversation is give us a framework and language for how we can process the experiences that we go through in life, so that ultimately we can build capacity to make meaningful impact. And if you think about the word momentum, momentum has to deal with mass and direction, right? A massive object moving in a certain direction has massive momentum. But if there's a lot of activity, but there isn't any real mass behind it, then there's emptiness, right? And that's what I'm trying to encourage us to be, is people who are not just having activity, or people who are just engaged in activity, but I want us to be people who actually have built ourselves up. We've built our capacity in all these different areas, so that when we come into contact with people, or when we engage in our environment and we engage with our world, there is actually meaningful impact, right? So let's talk about that word capacity. So capacity is the ability to contain. In an inanimate object, absent any external force that is being acted on that or external influence on that object, capacity is static. So you think about the room that you might be sitting in right now, you think about a building that might be built, the capacity of that room is static. It can probably take 20 people, 50 people, 100 people, wherever that space might be. But you see, in a human being, capacity is not static. Capacity is dynamic because humans have a unique ability to, with their intent, expand their capacity. And when you expand your capacity, it means that you can do more, because when you can contain more, then you can do more. And there are different areas of life where we need to build our capacity. So of course, we need to grow in our capacity for relationships, our capacity for leadership, for spirituality, which we'll be talking about, purpose, finances, etc. Because when we grow and we expand our capacity, then we know more and we can apply what we know in our environment, and then we can ultimately do more. And that's the type of momentum that I'm talking about for us to be able to build. So taking each one of these things, think about what your financial capacity is all about. Financial capacity is how much are you able to handle, right? And I heard someone say something. He said that, look, if you take all the wealth in the world, all the money in the world right now, if you take everything, put it in a bank and divide it equally across every single person in the world, you know what would happen? All of that wealth would accumulate in the same set of hands again over time. Just give it time. It would accumulate to the same set of people all over again. You know why? Because the people who are really controlling a lot of money, they have a larger capacity than people who aren't controlling as much money. You see, what I've found in my life and what I've seen and what I've heard, and just from studying this subject about financial independence, is that financial independence is not far away from your own personal development. So if you grow as a person, then you can grow in your ability to handle more finances. That's the first thought I want to leave you with as it pertains to money. Second thing I want to say about money here is this. Oftentimes, people have a very, very limited bandwidth in terms of how they think about money. Many times, people are just thinking about getting enough money for myself, for my family, so I can be happy and my children can be happy and they can be taken care of. But what I want to challenge you today to think about is expand your framework for how you think about money. See, because money in itself is not an end, but money is a means to an end. And if you think about the human being, if you organize your life around the pursuit of money, what tends to happen is there's something about you, what makes you uniquely human, then begins to die off. See, because money is a very, very powerful incentive. And it's an incentive in the sense that when you get some of it, you want to keep doing what you did that got you the money that you received. I mean, I get it. We all need money. We all want more of it. I get it. But I've learned in my life that if I try to organize my life around the pursuit of money, I then begin to lose my sense of meaning. But what I need to be doing is to be thinking about money as a tool, as a means to actually help me do what it is that I'm actually here on earth and here on this planet for. So beyond thinking about having not enough money for myself and for my family, I start thinking about how do I have enough money so that I can actually pursue my purpose? How do I have enough money so I can actually pursue the things that I'm supposed to be doing here on earth? See, because what money does for you is money gives you options. It gives you the ability to choose, to decide how you spend your time. So rather than focus my time on just like accumulating more money so I can be happy, well, I can then focus my time around the pursuit of purpose and knowing that in doing that, money is accruing to me and I have the ability to make the right choices in life. See, because if money in itself was an end, then life would be extremely miserable. But we know money is not an end in itself. It's just a means to an end. So that's the other thing I want to challenge you with here is that you should expand the way you think about money. Don't just think about yourself. Don't just think about getting enough for just me, but imagine all the things that you could do if you had enough. And you see, one of the ways that we can break that a selfish human condition, which we're all prone to, right? Because humanity is just prone to this, right? We just want to get for myself, make happy, is by acts of benevolence. And that's why giving is a very, very powerful tool in terms of shaping, our heart and making sure that we're constantly in touch with our humanity. Is the more we give, the more we accumulate so that we can give more, then the more humane we are as people, versus people who are just consistently chasing money, chasing and chasing after money, right? The other thing I want you to think about as it pertains to money is that money is an exchange of value. So what you have to be thinking about, versus rather than you pursuing money in itself, again, remember, it's not an end. What you should be thinking about is adding values. How do I add value in the lives of people around me? How do I add value in my society? See, because as I talked about capacity, if I grow in my capacity to add value, then more than likely more money would come to me. Now, of course, there's a place to sell in the fact that I'm able to add value, et cetera, and things like that. But just as a default idea, just as a fundamental idea, I have to be focused on growing my capacity to add value. Many times, we all have something that we're doing that brings us money. But what I've often found when I interact with people is people are not challenging themselves to expand that capacity. People stay at the same place, doing the same things, going steady. Hopefully I get a promotion. Hopefully I get a new client. Hopefully I can add a little bit more. And that's where they're staying. So they're coasting, right? They're okay with what they're doing, right? Because they haven't changed their mindset about what it is that they want to actually do in life. So you haven't set a goal. You haven't set a big goal that is actually forcing you to evolve as a person. And if you did that, then there's really no expectations for your financial condition to change. And that's another thought that you have to consider, is that money really doesn't start changing in your life because of the actions that you're taking, but it starts changing because you start thinking differently about it. So I've said a few things about it. Number one, don't make it just about yourself. Think bigger about what you want to use money to do, not just myself, my family, my children, but make it bigger, expand it to the world. I say to myself many times, and I say to friends that are around me that, look, when I die, I don't want the only people on this earth to mourn my absence to be my family. I want people, thousands and thousands and thousands and hundreds and millions of people across the globe who've never met me, to be able to say that that guy made an impact in my life. That's the scope of the vision that I have. And that's the scope of the vision that you can have. So if I'm thinking about that, if I'm thinking about making that much impact, then you know what I have to do? I have to make myself the person who has the capacity, right, with enough activity to make that type of impact in the world around. So here's the challenge for you. You always have to make sure that you're growing. If you have a skill set that's bringing you money, or if you have providing a service that's bringing you money, or you have a business that's bringing you money, don't just be average with it. Make sure what it is that you're doing it better than the average person out there. Many people in life operate at an average level. They're doing just enough so they don't get fired, right? It's like, yeah, you know what? I have this income, it's coming my way, it's just enough. Maybe I'll work a little bit harder, as long as it pays the bills. And it doesn't matter how much you're earning. You could be making $500,000 and still have this mindset. But my point to you is that if you hold a vision for the type of money that you really require in life, to do the things that you feel that you should be doing in life, you hold that consistently in your heart, and you actually have a goal to consistently grow, to improve yourself, to go beyond the average, to go beyond the ordinary. You know what would happen? You start finding out that your capacity to deliver value is expanding. And as people see that your capacity to deliver value is expanding, people will want to exchange your time and exchange what you know, exchange your product for the money that they have in their hands. And that's what I'm saying that you have to do in order to grow your capacity to handle more finances and to handle more money in life. There's a model that you have to think about as it pertains to money, right? Money, you can exchange your time for money. That's one model, right? And when you do that, you always have to think about this. Is there a need for what I'm doing? For most of us here, there is a need for what you do, because if someone's paying you money for it, it means that someone needs what you're doing, right? But if you're operating at the level of average, then you can be easily replaced. And then if you can be easily replaced, nobody feels the need to actually give you more than you actually deserve or give you more than average. The other question you have to ask yourself is this: how difficult is what I'm doing? Now, what you're doing might be difficult to do, but if I can easily replace you, there's no need for me to pay you above average. But how can you make yourself invaluable in any organization, whether it's an organization that you're working at, whether it's a service that you're providing for people? Can I do it in a way whereby if someone thinks about this job, thinks about this service, thinks about this product, I'm the one they want to call? That's how you create value. That's how you expand your capacity to deliver value. I'll give you a classic example. I remember there was a day recently, my parents were going to travel, and they were going to travel on a weekend, and most of the COVID testing centers were closed on the weekend. And the rule was that they needed a test within 48 hours, and there was no way they were going to get a test within 48 hours. So we went to the airport, and at the airport, actually, we had done a test already, but it wasn't ready on the day of travel. And at the airport, the price of the test was 2.5 times what it cost us to do it outside the airport. Now, that's value. That's like, they were going to do that test and they were going to get the test results in 30 minutes, right? Now, you might think that that was exploitative. I actually think that that was exploitative, right? But the point I'm trying to make is that when you need something, you have no alternatives and there's one choice. I want to be that person that people think about. And if people start seeing you that way, or if the market starts seeing you that way, then your value or your ability to command more financial resources then begins to increase. Now, there's so many other things that we can talk about as it pertains to money. There's investments, there's managing money, but everything I'm saying right now is fixing your mindset and how you think about money. Let's move on to the next thing here. The next thing here I talked about was your purpose in life, right? And every time I have this conversation about money, the way I like to define wealth is that intersection between your financial independence and you living a purposeful life. You see, because to me, money in itself is not an end, right? My life would be miserable if money in itself was an end. Like, what does it do for me if I gained everything in the world? I had $1 trillion, but at the end of the day, my life had no meaning. It would be meaningless, right? It has no impact. But when I'm living in a place, living in a situation, or when I'm in a state whereby I have more than enough income, such that I'm not organizing my life around the pursuit of money, but I'm organizing my life around purpose, about making an impact in life, about a meaningful transformation in my community. But then I have the option to actually choose purpose instead of choose money, number one. And number two, I actually have the finances to fund what it is that I actually am passionate about and what I'm pursuing in purpose. That's the best life that I can live. Now, there are so many people who don't have enough money, but are living a purposeful life. So don't hear that. That's not what I'm saying. Many people who don't have enough money that are living a purposeful life. And by the way, money is amoral. Money it's not good in itself. It's not bad in itself. It just magnifies you as a person, magnifies your heart ultimately. And there's so many wealthy people who also don't have any sense of purpose, don't have, or financially, or rich people, I should say, who don't have any sense of purpose in life, and they're hopeless in life. So why wouldn't I be the person who's rich and also living a purposeful life? And that's my challenge to you. Now, what you need to understand, maybe no one ever told you this, you were created for a purpose. Now, I jumped ahead of myself there. If you think about the word purpose, purpose is the reason for why something exists or why something was created. And just by that definition alone, it invites us to consider the thought that there was a designer or there was someone with intent for your life. So in having this conversation about purpose, I say to people that any worldview that I want to build my life around, any understanding of purpose that I want to build my life around has to answer 3 questions. It has to coherently answer these 3 questions as well. A question about the origin of life, the intent for human life, and the design for human life. Because absent a coherent response to these 3 questions, I find it hard to build my life around such a worldview. Now, I can take my phone, for example, right? It's a phone, it has a hard surface, whatever. If I take this phone and I use it to hammer a nail in, I can probably get a nail through a piece of wood, right? But what would happen to my phone? It'd be damaged, right? Because the design of the phone doesn't lend itself to being used as a hammer. So this is how we begin to understand what purpose is all about, right? Is to know the fact that, look, you were created for a reason. There's an overarching purpose in life. And I believe that the purpose of life is to create flourishing communities, is to elevate the dignity of humanity, is to move people towards a state where it looks like it's heaven on earth, beauty, loving one another, some sort of a utopia. And what I found and what you see many times is that human beings long for this type of community. We all want to love one another. We want to organize ourselves in society. We want to organize ourselves in a way where we thrive and we're prospering as a community. We want to love one another. We want to live in peace and harmony with each other. That does not come, randomly. That comes from somewhere. And that's where the discussion of purpose is all about. Now, there's an origin to that sense that we all have. Animals don't get in a room and try to organize the room, right? I've never seen an animal get into a disorderly room and say, oh, you know what, this place is a huge mess. Let me try and put it all in order. So, but we as human beings, we have a design that wants to order brokenness. We want to restore things that are broken. We want to order chaos. We want to order disorderliness. That comes from somewhere. And then you ask some other people to tell you, well, purpose of life is to be, to be loving with one another, etc. That comes from somewhere as well. Where does the idea of love come from? Where does the idea of peace and harmony come from? It comes from somewhere. It's not just a social thing, as some might like to put it, right? And what I'm saying to you is that within that overarching purpose that exists, you also have a purpose that fits within that overall scheme. And if no one told you this, you're valuable. There's something that you carry that's on the inside of you that is relevant for society today. It's relevant for the world today. It's relevant for the community today. And you are like the action hero, as I like to say it, in your own movie script. And what that should help you see is that your experiences in life, the unique attributes about yourself, your skills, your giftings, your personality, all of those things make up and define who you are. That's all part of your design. And you always know, like I said, purpose precedes design. So you are the way you are because there is a purpose for your life. There's something about your life that adds meaning to the world around. There's something about your life that adds value to the world around. And again, purpose is way bigger than you as a person. We all feel this need to make an impact in the world, to make an impact in the community around. Now, I'll tell you this, some people say things like, oh, well, does my purpose have to be big? Does it have to be anything mighty? Does it have to be anything large? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about fame here or being popular or whatever. But what I'm talking about is making a meaningful impact in the community. Now, if you had the cure for cancer, for example, would you say, oh, you know what, I don't want to be, I just don't want to be famous. It's really just for my family. You wouldn't do that. And this has nothing to do with money, right? But you would want to make sure you can get that drug out, get that cure out to as many people as possible so that people stop dying from cancer. It's the exact same thing. You see, you are like a cure to some weakness that we have in our human society. You carry something that benefits the entire world. And that's how you have to think about yourself, that there's something unique in you. There's something great about you as a person. And that thing needs to be spread to everyone around. So you have to look at your makeup, look at yourself, right? In the training session or in the next session on March the 5th that I'm talking about, we're going to be diving deep into purpose, understanding purpose and discovering our purpose and how you can actually fulfill purpose. That's actually a lot. And in the 6-week program, we're just going to be going very methodically, right, about how do you tap into the fullness of what it is that, is happening, on the inside of you, what it is that you are being called to do here upon the earth, and how do you actually progressively leave that out so that you're making meaningful impact in the world that is around you. But think about your skill sets. Think about your giftings. You see, one of the biggest problems that people have as it pertains to walking in purpose is that people aren't aware. right? People aren't, they haven't taken the time out to just pause and to just reflect about who they are as an individual. In our world today, there's so much distraction. There's so many things that are pressing on us. There's so many things that are trying to shape our identity. There's so many things that are trying to get us to act in a certain way. And sometimes, you know what you need to do? You just need to put all of that aside and just look for time for just yourself and to just hear your own self thinking, you know, first of all, just pause. What makes me me? What am I good at? You know, what have people said I'm good at? How can I take these skills and these abilities and how can I use it to make my community a better place? How can I take these skill sets, these abilities, what's unique about me, what people compliment me about, my strengths? How can I take all of that and how can I go out there and actually make the world a better place? How can I organize a community of people, organize a group of people such that the dignity of human life is elevated? The ease with which we live life is better. What are some of the things that are, you know, unique about me as a person, my personality that contribute, you know, to the world around me, that contribute to the society around me? These are the types of questions that you have to be reflecting about. See, because in every human heart, there is a sense of purpose, and there is a sense of purpose that connects to the source, connects to the creator of that person. And when you key into that, you then begin to have clarity about your purpose. The next thing I'll say as it pertains to purpose is oftentimes you're never going to see the entire picture. You just don't have the capacity, to use that word again, to see the entire picture of what your life is all about. But you know what you need to be? You need to be diligent. You need to start where you're at, right? Start where you're at. How can I take my life right now, my time, my abilities, my skill set, and rather than trying to optimize my life for pleasure, for my satisfaction, and by the way, let me throw this out there right now. See, one of the reasons why I think the cultural conversation right now, or the secular conversation around purpose, is very faulty, is because it's so focused on self. It's all about my self-love. It's all about, myself this, myself that, myself this, but your purpose is way bigger than yourself. Because if you continue to have that mindset, you know what's going to happen is that you're going to continue to optimize your life for self. You're going to optimize your life to minimize pain and to maximize the pleasure for your life. You're going to continue to solve for life within the context of happiness. And the problem with solving for life or optimizing your life for happiness is that you would then always try to avoid circumstances or situations that might be on the path of purpose, but if it doesn't make you happy, you're not going to take that path. Because oftentimes the path of purpose actually leads us across a route that is uncomfortable, right? And we have to learn to sort of walk that path. And while we're doing it, even though it might be uncomfortable, even though it might not be easy for us to go down that road, we still find meaning and we still find fulfillment in what it is that we're doing. And I want you to think about that, because sometimes it means that I might have to inconvenience myself. I might have to take out of my money, my satisfaction, my sleep, my happiness, so I can contribute to my community. Always thinking about the greater good. See, because if your life is all about yourself, then your life isn't worth much. But your life is only valuable to the extent to which you're able to add value in the lives of other people. Measure your self-worth, not by how you think about yourself, but measure your self-worth by how much you're able to impact the lives of other people. I heard a great man say this one time, that many people, when they die, people build big monuments, or they try to build big monuments for themselves. And what he said is this, that the real monuments, or the real tombstones, are tombstones that are written in the hearts of men. How many people remember me afterwards? How many people would hear my name? Can I reduce myself to just my first name, Moyo? How many people will want to name their children Moyo because I lived? How many people would hear Moyo and the first thing they think about is me as a person? Why? Not because I'm egocentric, but because I made meaningful impact in their life. And that's how I want you to think about yourself. Think about what you have, understanding that what you have is not just about you, right? There is a greater plan. There's an overarching plan that's out there to move human society forward, to progressively move people towards an elevated state of dignity, to make life better for the other person. And there's a role that you have to play in that overall plan. We'll dive deeper into this in our next session on purpose. Now, let's talk about the last one here, spirituality, expanding our capacity for spirituality. You see, spirituality is another one of those words that has permeated our culture so much, but you see, it's not really a new thing. See, because human beings are spirit beings. We'll talk more about that later, but human beings are spirit beings, and every human being has a spiritual experience. Now, the question is, how conscious are you of this spiritual experience? Some people are very conscious of it. Some people are just not conscious of it. But nonetheless, everyone is still going through some sort of a spiritual experience in life. Right? And what is spirituality? It's our ability to be able to experience a life beyond this material universe. It's the understanding that the world that we see, the things that we can measure, the things that we can touch and we can feel around us is not all that there is. But there are other intangible things that affect the way we live life and actually, frankly, make life work for us. And a lot of people know this, even scientists know this. There are certain things that people just hold as truth. There are a lot of scientific concepts that people just hold as truth. They work. We don't know why they work, but they work. I don't know why pi works, 22/7, right? But it works. I don't know why the speed of light works, but it works in physics, right? These are all mathematical constants that we use. I don't know why gravity is what it is, but it works for everything that we need to do. So all of these things have been fine-tuned. In the same vein, we ask ourselves questions about what is love? What is peace, right? How do we relate with other people? How do we fulfill the right standards, with other people of relationship? All of these aspects are all aspects of spirituality that we all have to explore. And, there are so many people that talk about spirituality, and there are all kinds of things that people, want to use to, access the spiritual realm. And there's a reason why people want to do that. You see, because for thousands and thousands and thousands of years before you and I, before this century, before this decade, right, people have been accessing the spiritual world to bring to bear spirituality into their natural experience. People have learned and have understood the fact that the world that we live in is not all that there is, but there is a way to bring in spiritual realities and to actually express it in the world that we live in. Take, for example, a lot of creativity that we see in the world today is as a result of people who have been able to tap into that spiritual realm. A lot of things that we espouse as being beautiful in the arts, in music, these are things that people have brought from a realm that's outside of the world that we live in today, and they're expressing in this natural realm. A lot of inventions, innovations, and things like that are a result of these types of things. So think about what your life would be like. Think about how you'd be able to live purposefully to the extent that you're actually well connected spiritually. Now, I want to be careful when I say this, because when I say this, people can have all kinds of thoughts. Every human being, because every human being is a spirit being, every human being can have a spiritual experience. Every human being actually has a spiritual experience. Now, the question is, can you become skilled in navigating the spiritual realm so that you can make it work for you, or make it work for the plan and your purpose here on earth? And there is a way, right? Now, the other thing I want to leave you with here is, as you think about spirituality, there has to be the question about who judges, right? What true spirituality is from what, if I can use this word, fake spirituality is, for lack of better words to use, right? How do we get our morals? What's the moral standard? How do we judge between right and wrong, good and evil? There has to be some sort of arbiter for these truths spiritually. The other thing I would also say is that because we can all access the spiritual realm, right, we have to be careful how we navigate the spiritual world. See, because the same way there are positive forces that help and move us progressively in society, there are also negative forces in the spiritual realm that move us regressively, right? Or that introduce a lot of immorality, decadence, etc., in the world and in society around us. And one of the things that we have to always understand as we explore the concept of spiritual growth and spiritual maturity here is this, is that we can access that realm by mediums, but there's a safe way to access it, and it's through the agency of the Holy Spirit that the Christian faith teaches, right? And we can access that world, and we can begin to understand how we live on earth today, how we live in our natural experience today. How do we fulfill the right standards of relationship with the people who are around us? It helps us, guides us with our morality, guides us with the expression of our personality here. And as you think about spirituality, right, which again, much deeper class that we can go into when we talk about these topics here is this. As you think about your spirituality, one of the things that you have to focus on is character development, right? How do I grow as a person, understanding that in and of myself, I'm inadequate to fulfill all the standards of right relationship? See, because if you really look at yourself, human beings left alone would always make a choice or would have a default a state to make a choice for self. And sometimes as we make these choices for ourselves in judging what's right, in judging what's wrong, in trying to optimize our life around ourselves, we get to a situation whereby we hurt other people. And one of the greatest things that we can realize is that by ourselves, that we're not able to actually live life to its fullest, right? And that's why we need help. We need some sort of a guide. We need some sort of a judge. We need some sort of a moral compass to help us with how we can actually live life effectively and live life to the fullest. To help us well and understand, where does our purpose really come from? Why am I the way that I am? Why is meaning very important to me? Why is human life also important to me? All of these things are spiritual concepts that we would need to understand, that we need to dive deeper in, and that we need to get. But if there's one thing I want to leave you with, right, is in spirituality, the height of your ability to experience the spiritual realm is in how you treat other people. Is, can you treat other people with dignity? Can you treat other people with love? Can I be a person who has grown in my character? Can I be a person who has grown in how I conduct myself when no one is looking, and also when I'm in the presence of people? Understanding that all of these things are ideas that do not originate from myself alone, but they originate from a world that is outside. Can I express myself in faith, right? Can I meditate to be able to bring ideas from a spiritual realm and use it to contribute to society today? And there's a way to do all of these things, right? There's a way to navigate the spiritual realm. There's a way to meditate, which is one of the most spiritual exercises that you can do. If you think about how you can expand your capacity spiritually, is by meditating, is by visualizing certain things in your heart, in your mind, understanding that those things come from the Creator, from God who has made you as a person, and knowing that there is an ultimate purpose, that what I'm visualizing and what I'm trying to bring and produce here on earth is not just for my benefit alone, but it's so I can create a flourishing community. And one of the things that I said when I was talking about purpose here is this, is that if you think about it, any worldview that I'm going to build my life around has to coherently answer the question on origin of mankind, the design of mankind, and then the purpose of mankind. Because there's origin, there's one who has to be a creator with intent, and the one who has the intent has to have designed me a certain way. So purpose precedes intent. And what I found personally is that the Judeo-Christian faith, for me, most coherently answers that question of origin of humankind, the design of humankind, and the purpose of humankind. So when I talk about spirituality, I'm looking to explore, what does the Judeo-Christian faith say about spirituality, and how to be skillful and to navigate my way in the spiritual realm and to express myself here on earth. That's all I have for you today. So again, I know that was a lot of different ideas. Couldn't really go deep on any of these ideas, but on the March 5th session, like I said, I am going to be speaking more specifically about purpose in depth. How do you understand purpose at a broader level? How do you know your own purpose for life? And ultimately, how do you begin to exercise yourself in purpose? And then following that, more information will be coming out from that. For those of you who are interested, we will be having this 6-week training session where we'll be diving deep with different experts, not just myself. I'll be inviting some of my friends who I know are subject matter experts who will be speaking to us about purpose, who will be speaking to us about spirituality, and who will be speaking to us about how to secure that money bag, like we like to say. So I trust it's going to be a great session. And there'd also be, personal time with me where I'll be able to share at a more deeper, much deeper, more intimate level, some of the things that I'm doing, some of the things that I am also working on. All right. Well, I'm gonna pause there and I'm gonna check. Ooh, I check the chat room, see if there are questions. I think I did pretty good on time in it. All right, all right. Questions from anyone? Okay,
I have one.
go ahead, Winifred.
Hi. So I guess I wanted to ask, is there a distinguishment between career and one's, let's say, like God purpose, or like the purpose that I found for myself? I just wanted to see if you can kind of expatiate on that. I mean, for people who are working, like, you're at work for such a number of hours, you know,
Yeah.
that taken away from my time that I could be pursuing purpose. I did the same thing, you know.
Yeah, so that's an absolutely great question. And a lot of people ask me that question is that, well, I'm working this job and like can my career be my purpose? Your career can very well be your purpose, right? But if you listen to what I said about purpose, right, it's bigger than just myself and what I'm doing. Now, also, you need to understand that your purpose is so big that it's a journey, it's an unfolding journey. There's never like an end to it, right? So you being in a certain career path may actually be you walking on the path of purpose, right? And but to actually say, the purpose in itself is not an end. It's kind of like what I'm trying to get at, right? So you might be doing something that's training you or training some sort of potential on the inside of you so you can ultimately do what you were created to do here on earth and doing life. But what I try to caution people about is don't limit um, the expression of your purpose to what you're doing in your career, to what you're doing in your job, right? If that makes any sense. Let me give you an example. You know, and I'll give you a biblical example. There's a story that's told in the Bible about Joseph, right? And he ultimately fell in a career path, for lack of better words, where he was in a governmental position, and he became a prime minister. Right now, while fulfilling that vocation or that appointment as a government official, the ultimate purpose was the preservation of the seed, right? Was the preservation of the entire world, was the preservation of the nation of Israel, so that there would be a social safety net for them. That was the purpose, right? But that act of purpose was expressed through that path of him being a government official or being the prime minister of Egypt at that point in time. So ultimately, what I'm saying to you here is this, is that you might be in a career path, but don't limit yourself or your expression of purpose to what that career path is doing, because if that career path ultimately just gives you a nice job and gives you fame, then it doesn't sound to me like that's you, you know, expressing the fullness of your purpose, because there's much more, right? Is what I'm trying to say. There's much more. Somebody asked a question. Vanessa says, for those who know their purpose and are already working in it, is this class for them? Absolutely. Absolutely. This is about expanding capacity. Doesn't matter where you're at. Trust me, you're going to be challenged. Now, in a session like this, we can only keep it sort of limited, but we stretch so much, stretch so much. I mean, I believe I'm working in purpose as well. I believe I think big, but someone said to me one day, Moya, I need you to think big. And I'm like, dude, like what? I already think big, but this person really stretched my mind even further. So trust me, you would be stretched as well. Any other questions? Type it in the chat box.
Yes, Pastor Moya, I have a question.
Go ahead.
And there's another question about, does your purpose have to make you money? Or can it just be you just, blessing people?
So that's a good question. Does your purpose have to make you money? Let's talk about Mother Teresa. Do we all know Mother Teresa? Yes? No? Come on, y'all. You must know Mother Teresa. Okay, yes. Now I'm seeing the yeses rolling. Now, by human natural standards, right? Mother Teresa wasn't rich, right? Now, but you need to understand something, right? And this goes back to the question of how we think about money, right? Because if you heard me right, I said money gives you options. Financial freedom is the ability to live your life, right, without pursuing money. It gives you the option to choose how you use your time, right? So based on that definition, right, would you say Mother Teresa was rich or not? Absolutely yes. I mean, if she decided she wanted to eat in London in the afternoon and fly to Australia to have dinner the next day, she all she needed to do was just make a call and she would be able to do that. You see what I'm saying? And the reason why she would be able to do that was because she has made so much impact in the world, so much impact in the world that she has created so much value in the hearts of men that whatsoever it is that she desires, right, people would be willing to give her money to bring her that satisfaction. And the point I'm trying to make here is that as you pursue purpose, as you focus your life on pursuing purpose, right, money isn't necessarily the goal that you're looking for, but money would always be exchanged for value. And the highest form of value that you can create is by living a purposeful life. All right.
I have a question. Sorry, well, unless another one comes in, but I have one more. It's about purpose and relationship. So if you're with somebody and their purpose seems to kind of contradict or go against what you know your purpose to be, does that mean your purpose is your relationship isn't meant to be?
Ooh.
I don't know if the question makes sense.
Let me think about what you're asking me here. So you're saying you have a calling that you're aware of and you're walking in your knowledge of that calling, but then you're in a committed relationship with a person who seems to be not aligned with that purpose. Is that what you're asking me?
Yes, their purpose seems to be antagonistic to your purpose.
First question, are you married to that person?
No.
Okay, good. Okay, so you're not married, because if you're married to that person, you both would have to work it out somehow. And I say that casually, so please, don't cut my head off. There's much deeper level, understanding marriage relationships that I can talk about later. But let's talk about that particular question, right? Purpose and relationships. So we talked about momentum, right? It's activity, mass, capacity, moving in a certain direction, right? Now, if you are driving in one direction, say you're heading north and you're in a car, right? Heading north. And a relationship is like a person who's riding in a car with you and you're heading north. More than likely, if that person says, I want to go south, but it's like, oh man, I really just hanging around you. It might be cool if you have a 12-hour drive north and the person has a 12-hour drive south. It might be okay if the person enjoys your company for 1 hour of the drive. But after a while, by like the 10th hour driving north, the person knowing that they're supposed to be heading 12 hours south, it's just going to become a very, very uncomfortable ride. And I think in such a relationship, it's very okay to be clear, right? And say, look, this is the direction that I'm headed in. I think this is the direction that you're headed in. I just don't think that we're headed in the right path or headed in the right direction. And we just have to change the structure of what that relationship is, right? It just means that that person is not the person who's riding in the car with you. That person then just becomes the person that you make a phone call to from the car. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Sorry, we
Okay.
have one more question before we wrap up. Yeah, there's just one more in here.
No, are people asking these questions in the chat?
No.
Okay, well, I can take more. I think we can go to like 15 minutes past or 10 minutes past. So I can certainly take more questions. So please type your questions in the chat. I like to hear them. Winifred, go ahead.
Sorry, yes, my thing was hard to unmute. Another question: Is there such a thing as finding out your purpose too late?
Oh,
Or walking
no,
too late?
no such thing. See, God, who is the creator of all humankind, is, for lack of better words, obsessed with people fulfilling purpose. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what state you are, doesn't matter what situation you are in, as long as you get to a place where you are willing to yield yourself to the understanding of your purpose and walk fully, or I like to correct myself and say not your purpose, but God's purpose for your life. Yield yourself to that and be committed to that. You would always, you can start walking in the fullness of your purpose. Now, but on the flip side, just by nature of how the world works, we're all human beings. We have a finite life here on earth, right? And so therefore, if you find out if you come to an understanding of your purpose later on in life, you can do whatever you have to do, but the truth is that you probably would not be able to do as much as someone who started 40 or 50 years before you, right? But I don't want to say anything like it's too late, right? Because I'm not the one who's measuring success here on earth. The person who, success can truly and only be measured by the one who actually has given you a purpose, right? And success in life is the degree to which you fulfill the purpose for which you are called to fulfill, right? So I'll just leave that at that. Other questions? All right. Well, it looks like there aren't any other questions. Nobody else? Oh, okay. I see one more. Oh, just type it in the chat. Or actually, yeah, just type it in the chat. Everyone else, if you have a question, please go ahead and type it in the chat. I will read it there. Just trying to control random noises. Thank you, Vanessa. Appreciate you. Bo show. Thank you. There's a lot to talk about. So while merging purpose and spirituality, we sometimes limit ourselves and don't realize how much power we have. Yes, that is very true. Is that your question? While the question's rolling, I just want to make sure, so everyone, please don't be shy about asking questions. If you're shy about it, why don't you send them to me directly so that I can probably answer them and respond to them, because I think it would everyone would benefit from this. Okay, so I see, how does enabling environment help in fulfilling your life's purpose? Oh, that's an excellent question. How does an enabling environment help in fulfilling your life's purpose? I think it certainly does help. And when we get into our conversation, more so, because the concept is much deeper than what I would share, and it's one I'd like to actually unpack in the training session. You see, as it pertains to purpose, right? One of the things that you need to understand is that God isn't removed from your human experience, right? He's a vital part of that human experience that you're going through. So the environments that you find yourself have a role in shaping who you become as a person, right? The challenge for many people is that the pursuit of purpose is not strong enough, or and maybe this is probably where your question is around enabling environment. There are some situations where the people around you, or the situation that's around you, the environment that you find yourself, may actually be regressive or pulling you back from actually doing what it is that you're supposed to be doing as it pertains to walking in purpose. But one of the most beautiful things about human beings is that we have the ability to actually change our environment. And the ability to change our environment actually starts from within. It starts from a choice that we make. And it starts from how we begin to think, first of all, because the first environment that you live in as a human being is what's going on in here and what's going on in your heart. Right. So then you can then begin to change that environment, right? You can read books, you can expose yourself to teachings, you can expose yourself to sessions like this, you can join classes, like the one that I'm talking about that would be coming up. And all of those things then begin to change your environment. And what I found oftentimes is that when you start changing your environment in your heart and in your mind, your external environment changes. Now, what I've just said is a very, very powerful concept, even as it pertains to wealth creation. Right? If you can change your environment on the inside, first of all, your outward environment would ultimately change. Somehow, something changes. Somehow, there'd be a disruption, there'd be a movement, there will be something that gets you into the right place so that you can start interacting with the right people and you can start moving along the right path. I sort of frame the response to that question this way because there are some people that necessarily may not have the ability to actually physically change their environment. But what I found is that any change that you're looking for in life actually starts here and actually starts in your heart. So you start there, you can get yourself in the right place that ultimately would enable you on the path to purpose. But yes, your environment is a huge, it plays a huge role in terms of fulfilling purpose. But the first statement that I made in that God is actively involved in your experience, and the idea behind that is because of where you're at right now doesn't mean, as long as you are committed to fulfilling purpose, the one who organizes human life, the one who organizes human society, right? The one who has created you for a purpose would ultimately get you on the right path, meaning that you're never too far away to be set on the path of purpose, even though you feel like you might be, and you know that you might be in the wrong environment. That was the point of that statement. Says, can you share how you've been able to merge spirituality and purpose? Yes. So that's another great question. And that's part of the reason of this particular session, was to examine how those ideas actually intersect with one another, right? So like I said, spirituality is part and parcel of the human experience. Your life as a human being is not removed from a spiritual experience, right? The question then becomes is how then do we navigate ourselves and navigate growth spiritually, right? And if you really think about what I said about purpose, and I sort of made this link at the end of my speech, my discussion, as I said this, I said, look, any conversation around purpose, around how I would have to build my life and organize my life, has to coherently answer the question on origin, on design, and intent for human life. And if I establish a coherent response on origin, design, and intent, and I know what the origin of human life is, I know what the intent of human life is, and then the design of human life is, I know that the answer of purpose of a thing doesn't come from within the thing itself, right? If you, for example, if you walked into a room and you saw a contraption in that room, right? Say you've never seen a phone before. You walked into a room and you saw a phone on a table. You can't find out the purpose of the phone by examining the phone itself. You'd have to go through the manufacturer, the one who made the phone, who designed the phone, to answer the question of purpose. So that's where the spirituality comes into play. So the degree to which I can ultimately live life to the highest potential at its highest form is the degree to which I understand spiritual things, right? Because then I can connect to the mind of the one who has created me. And then I can then begin to plug into that and then begin to understand, the intentions, the heart of the creator so that I can fulfill my purpose. So it is very important as one pursues purpose to not do it absent trying to grow spiritually or trying to connect beyond this material universe that we're playing in. See, because then certain things that we do, and this is why I was going back to that uh, uh, position on coherence, is that if people tell you that the purpose of life is to organize life, to love one another in community, etc., you have to ask the question: where is this concept of love coming from? Why do we value love? Why do we value human connection? Why do we value peaceful connection, peaceful relationships, etc.? And by understanding where that originates from, that is the process of growing spiritually. By understanding and being able to express that love, to express that nature, to express that belief, that confidence in humankind, that is really where spirituality comes from. So that's how I pursue it, is that I don't see them as being mutually exclusive. I see them as part and parcel of being able to live life to the fullest. Okie dokie. All right. Okay, so it is 12:10 right now. I trust you all enjoyed the session. Yes or no? Give me hand claps, thumbs up, whatever it is, reactions. I just want to see them, let them flow. Flow. I see the claps. I see the things going on, thumbs up, etc. Appreciate y'all. The hearts. Thank you so much. Love y'all so much. Appreciate you. I was going to say this, that I'm sure many of you joined because someone dragged you to join this session, but hopefully you still got something out of it, right? Yeah? Yes? No? Maybe so. Thank you so much. It was great having you around. So I certainly want to do more of this. Now, like I said, this was high level. This was just, a taste of flavor. What I want to ask you to do for me, everyone who has been a part of this, take a screenshot, take a picture, write a quote, post it on Instagram, post it on Facebook, tag me, just to let people know about what you experienced today. You see, because this is all about purpose. This is about impact. This is me wanting to pour on my heart, what I know, into the lives of other people. And when the time comes, I want to be able to count on you all on March the 5th. That when we start putting out the flyers, when we start talking about the event on March the 5th, which would be about purpose, I want to ask you to be evangelists, to say, wow, I attended the first session. It was a general overview. It was a great session, but guess what? I want you to shout about it, talk about it, drag more people, twist more people's arms, whatever you have to do to get people to participate on the March 5th event. I want to ask for your commitment to please do that on my behalf. But for now, just take pictures, write a quote, what really ministered to you, what really touched your heart. Tag me on Facebook, tag me on Instagram, put it out there so that people know what you had a taste of. And I believe that this is the beginning of a certain transformation in your life. And more information about that 6-week training program is going to be coming up. I tell you, it's going to be a great training program. I'm going to have myself there. I'm going to have a good friend of mine, Jimmy Tewe, there as well. I'm going to have, many other people who will talk to you about purpose, people who will talk to you about spirituality. Now, this is going to be a closed session, so I'm going to go raw. I'm going to unpack things, right? I'm going to go personal, right? And just share really deep, deep things, right, with people. And I guarantee you 100% that if you go through that 6-week training session, I guarantee you, I promise you everything, your life will be transformed, your life will be changed. I'm just going to turn it over to Winifred right now and Olaronke right now to just share some additional details.
Of course, guys, let's just do claps in the chat for Pastor Moyo. That was such a brilliant session. I think Pastor Moyo has really talked about it already. I think next steps, we're just asking for everybody that was here. We had a great turnout as this is our first meeting. So we just want people to obviously commit to spreading the word. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Post something on Instagram. Word of mouth is one of the best and fastest way to spread information. So please write a story, write